rather than being like concentrated in one central authority or control. So in a decentralized system, there's no single power of control. And by saying this, let's jump right into the webinar's overview. So I'm going to introduce you quickly to DeFi. Then I will pass the word to Volkan, who is going to deep dive into DeFi use cases. We'll hand over to me again, talking about smart contracts and dApps. And lastly, how actually a DAO works. So again, in the first module, we will introduce you to DeFi, which stands for Decentralized Finance. I will explain you the basics that are needed to understand the following topics. So again, DeFi is a core concept of blockchain technology, meaning the control, as I've mentioned before, so the decision-making and the execution is transferred from a centralized entity to a distributed network. Here, a quick overview. Again, what is DeFi, the key milestones with some future perspectives, DeFi applications. We're going to talk about the benefits. Also very interesting to mention the difference between CeFi and DeFi. We're going to include some risk factors that are involved when talking about decentralized finance. And lastly, we're going to conclude with a quiz. So what is DeFi? Why do we need DeFi? So basically, it aims to create an open source, permissionless, and transparent financial service ecosystem that is available to everyone and operates without any central authority. So DeFi basically aims to disrupt and transform traditional financial systems that we have currently by eliminating, intermediaries, enhancing accessibility, and enabling greater financial inclusivity. So DeFi leverages basically the programmable nature of smart contracts. I'm going to explain this later on, to enable basically the complex financial transactions and to automate processes. And this programmability allows basically for the creation of sophisticated financial instruments, decentralized exchanges, lending protocols, and much more. In terms of users, you as a user would retain complete control over your personal assets and interact with this ecosystem through peer-to-peer decentralized applications. In terms of timeline, so the term DeFi was created in 2018 by several Ethereum developers, but the actual DeFi movement arguably started with the creation of Bitcoin in 2009. So Bitcoin could be considered as the first peer-to-peer digital money built on blockchain technology, which can be classified as DeFi. And the real milestone in DeFi, however, is the launch of the Ethereum network in 2015. So Ethereum introduced smart contracts, a more versatile programming language, and the ERC20 token standards. The ERC20 is a widely adopted token standard on the Ethereum blockchain, and it defines, a set of rules and guidelines that a token contract must follow to be considered as a ERC20 token. After this, like 2018, the network quickly began attracting developers to build all kinds of dApps, making Ethereum the foundation for DeFi applications. And some of the DeFi applications include lending and borrowing platforms. You have decentralized insurance. So there are platforms to provide, or which aims to provide, decentralized insurance coverage against smart contract failures, hacks, or other risks. So they are unable users to protect their assets and receive compensation in the event of an insured event. So the DeFi space experienced exceptional growth after that. The total value locked in DeFi, which measures the total funds deposited in DeFi protocols, they grew from $250 million in the beginning of 2019 to a peak of $250 billion at the end of 2021. We will discuss also later, again, the smart contracts into more detail. But yeah, this was in terms of timeline. Let me move forward. In terms of DeFi applications, here we have stablecoins, you have decentralized exchanges, lending and borrowing protocols, and we will go into more detail in the next module when we discuss the DeFi use cases. But just quickly, in terms of stable coins, just the term itself, they're designed to maintain a stable value, often not pegged to fiat currency like the US dollar. So they provide stability and can be used as a medium of exchange. In terms of decentralized exchanges, we also call them DEX. They are platforms, to facilitate peer-to-peer cryptocurrency trading without relying on any intermediary. So then we have also asset management. So DeFi asset management platforms, they offer services for users to invest and manage their digital assets through automated or algorithmic strategies. And these platforms, they provide users with options for diversification and potential yield optimization. So again, here you can see the 4 applications that are usually being used in DeFi. So what are the benefits? So the most significant difference between DeFi and traditional finance is arguably accessibility. So anyone can create a crypto wallet and begin using DeFi services as long as they have access to the internet. So imagine there are no signups, no minimum account balances or identity verifications that traditional financial institutions require. So users, they can participate in financial activities without requiring prior approval or registration with a central authority. So they can simply connect their digital wallets, such as MetaMask or Trust Wallet, to the DeFi application platform and start utilizing the services. And this means that basically DeFi helps to improve the financial inclusion by serving the unbanked people. In terms of CeFi, so again, I've mentioned before there's CeFi and DeFi. It stands for centralized finance. It's a world where financial services are managed by centralized financial institutions. I know it's a bit confusing because even inside the crypto world, not every financial service is decentralized. So when we say CeFi in the crypto space, it generally refers to crypto trades that are handled through a centralized exchange. For example, staking tokens to earn rewards through a centralized exchange often requires users to use a custodial wallet and to trust the centralized exchange. However, CeFi still dominates, many aspects of the crypto world. As of 2021, over 90% of crypto trading volume took place on centralized exchanges. DeFi, on the other hand, doesn't involve any middleman, so there's no intermediary. So they complete basically trades via self-executing smart contracts in peer-to-peer transactions. So users interact with their own personal wallet and don't have to deposit crypto with a third party. Both DeFi and CeFi, they have advantages and limitations. So CeFi provides convenience, reduces the technical complications of managing various DeFi products on your own. CeFi also offers fiat to crypto trading services, and major platforms, they also provide customer support, which is quite important for people who are not so familiar with the space. And while DeFi give users complete control over their crypto, you have more privacy and many other attractive features as it has limitations. So again, since you don't have customer support when talking about DeFi, it requires a lot of experience and research, in addition, to potential technological failures, lack of cross-chain services, and security risks. But despite these limitations, we can still say that DeFi is growing and evolving rapidly. So its many advantages can potentially bring enormous benefits to the population globally, particularly those left outside the traditional financial markets that we have.
So, Mom, let me maybe jump in here. I was solving the technical issues on the background in the beginning real quick, so I was a little bit quiet. But yeah, maybe a question to you and actually also to the audience in here. Which systems suits in general what type of users and customers? What do you think from your perspective? What is more suitable for CeFi users? What is more suitable for DeFi users?
Yeah, I think that's a good question that you bring to the table. I mean, I think this really depends on the preferences and the requirements of individual users. So there's no right or wrong answer. So again, CeFi platforms, they generally offer more a user-friendly, more familiar experience similar to traditional financial institutions. So they have, intuitive interfaces. Again, I've mentioned they have customer support, well-established security measures. On the other hand, you have DeFi platforms, which offers you more control over your funds and financial activities. But you as a user, you need to manage your assets directly. So there's no one who's managing for you. So there's no intermediary. So in summary, to answer your question, CeFi platforms may suit users who prioritize a user-friendly experience, regulated environments, and a centralized authority managing their funds. And DeFi platforms, they may be more suitable, for users who value more autonomy, transparency, innovation, and want to have, I think, most importantly, direct control over their assets and financial activities. I hope this answers the question.
Absolutely. I think there's a trade-off between both. So there's
Exactly.
there's a trade-off. So cool. Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So let's move forward to the next slide. Yeah, risk factors always needs to be included as well. So you need to bear in mind that we face some risks, including counterparty risk, you have the regulatory risk, software risk, and risk relating to low market cap tokens. Just to flag here, we won't go into more detail on these in this presentation, but still they are important. So we encourage you to do your own research on these. Just quickly to describe these categories of risk. Counterparty risk is just that the project you invested declares bankruptcy. In terms of regulatory risk, I mean, your country just can decide, to make, for instance, owning NFTs illegal. You have, on the other hand, the software risk where, the smart contract of a project might contain a bug. And lastly, the low market cap risk, is simply the liquidity risk. So nobody wants to buy the volume of the token you are selling at the market price. And as always, we have a quiz question for you guys.
Of course.
Yeah, like last time, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's going to be a simple one. Which of the following statements are true? Choose all that apply. So I'm going to read out the questions or the statements. First, DeFi refers to an ecosystem of financial applications built on blockchain networks. B, DeFi refers to an ecosystem of financial applications built on centralized ledgers. C, in the crypto world, every financial service is decentralized. And D, in the crypto world, not every financial service is decentralized. So we're going to give you 30 seconds to answer this question. You're going to type it hopefully in the chat box. So me and Volkan, we're going to check.
Exactly. Just type it into the chat. Which answer you think it's correct?
Also, would be great to tell us where you're watching from. So last time we had some people from Turkey, Nigeria, so quite internationally. Would be great if you can let us your answers and the place where you're from.
That's good.
Maybe so let's give another 5-10 seconds. Exactly. All right. So we have here we have people here from Morocco. Nice to meet you. Let's see. Do we have only A? Again, we have here more than one answer is correct, just to give you a hint.
um, most people are betting on A.
Yeah. I can tell you A is already correct, but there's one more statement. So let's wait 1 more second. But yeah, the majority voted for A. It's actually A and D. So in the crypto world, not every financial service decentralized there, which makes sense. But yeah, now I would like hand over to Volkan, who's going to talk more about the DeFi use cases. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mahmoud. So we are going over to the second module. And yeah, in this module, I will go over the DeFi use cases in general. DeFi, what are stable coins? What is borrowing and lending? What are decentralized exchanges? And there are some particular DeFi applications, like automated market makers and yield farming. That's what we are going to cover within this module. So DeFi in general refers to an ecosystem of financial applications built on the blockchain network. You might think that sounds nice, but what what DeFi can really actually do? So, well, with crypto wallets and some crypto, you can access a range of financial services. Those are, for example, borrowing, lending, payment, and staking and swaps. Of course, you need to always check with the country where you are at, with the regulations, if it's permitted or not. But yeah, those are some use cases. With a few clicks on your computer or smartphone, you can enjoy many financial services that usually would require a bank. To visit a bank and do an ID check, do sign documents, go through all the formalities, which can take sometimes days or weeks. And with DeFi, usually you don't have these formalities in place. So in this module, we will explain some of the most popular DeFi products, how they work, and how you can use them. As of 2022, most DeFi services are for lending and borrowing, staking, and liquidity pools. Financial services such as mortgages and insurances are also natural use cases for DeFi, but we are still in a very early stage with DeFi and in general with those applications. So, for example, block-based insurances are mostly confined to insure for certain types of crypto deposits and investments. And before we get into these DeFi use cases, we must first explain the concept of stablecoins. Stablecoin is a type of cryptocurrency whose price is typically pegged to other assets, most commonly, usually the US dollar or gold or other currencies, maybe even. And the pegging mechanism is designed to achieve price stability of stable coins. So you can imagine it. Usually traditional, like usually fiat currencies tend to be more stable depending on the fiat currency, but in order to have the stability and not so volatile price, the price is pegged to fiat currencies or to US dollar and gold. You may ask, why do we need actually stable coins? Well, we know that crypto prices are very volatile. Again, suppose you put some Bitcoin as a collateral to borrow, for example, $1,000 or X amount. And if the Bitcoin price goes down a lot, your lender that you borrowed the money from may become nervous and ask you to put more Bitcoin collateral. And in order to avoid that, you can just basically use stable coins to avoid any potential liquidations, and then basically have more stability when you borrow against stable coins or cryptocurrencies in general. If you can use crypto with relatively stable prices, price collaterals, then this problem can be elevated. So the need for crypto with price stability exists in most crypto transactions. That's why stable coins are a very vital component of the DeFi ecosystem. It just gives more stability to the overall ecosystem. So yeah, now we know what stablecoins are, and then let's go into the crypto borrowing and lending, which is among the most popular applications actually for DeFi products in the DeFi space.
Just a quick question, Volkan. What is like actually the difference between stable coins and CBDCs? Like,
So
do you have
that's
an idea? Because I mean, they are aiming for the same purpose, I guess, right? But maybe I think it's also good for our viewers to understand really the difference between CBDCs, which is a central bank digital currency, and a stable coin. So why do we differentiate between these two types of cryptocurrencies?
Absolutely, that's a really good question, Mahmoud. So in general, stable coins are issued usually by a private entity or an organization, and whereas CBDCs, those are central bank digital currencies, and this is issued by a central bank, as the name already says, or by a government authority. So usually the governance or the control is different for both issuers. So for stable coins, the governance is controlled depending on the design of the smart contract, but usually it's fully decentralized, or again depending on the design. While others may have centralized authorities, in general. And for CBDCs, they are centrally controlled by the issuing party, which is usually the bank and the government. So it goes similar with what you just covered actually previously with DeFi and CeFi. Usually CBDCs are a little bit more, tend to be more centralized, and whereas stable coins tend to be more decentralized. So those are usually the main differences. Hope that answers.
Right. Yeah, sure. But they follow the same goal, right, in terms of stability. So the stable coin, as the name itself, and as you have explained already, aims to provide a currency which is stable, as well as the CBDC. The only thing I think worth mentioning is the differentiation of the issuer and the governance and control. But yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, in general, yes. It depends also on especially with CBDCs, it actually depends a lot on the motive behind. So why CBDCs are issued? What is the real reason behind that, right? Then we are going already into very political discussions. But I think the motive also behind matters a lot. But in general, yes, it's really about stability, but it's about in general central and decentral control basically of those stable coins versus CBDCs.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Okay, let's continue. So crypto lending works usually by taking crypto from one user and providing it to another with an interest. And in most cases, the loan taker must put some sort of collateral before they borrow any type of crypto. On the other side of the loan, you may have smart contracts that mint stable coins to lend out a platform lending out funds from other users. So the exact method of managing the process changes from platform to platform. You can find crypto lending services on centralized or decentralized platforms, but the core principle is in general the same. You get it from someone who's basically putting the money somewhere, and then the other person borrows that money, and in between there's basically some sort of like interest rate. And crypto borrowing and lending is usually done without credit checks and loan transactions, which is actually I would say the most beneficial aspect for crypto loans in general. Because again, when you do take traditional loans, you have so many checks in place. If you, for example, think of it as if you want to borrow a mortgage in most countries, there is in some countries you might maybe even not able to borrow unless you have certain checks. Maybe you need a stable job or a stable income. But with crypto borrowing in general, as long as you have collateral, you're pretty much ready to go. And usually within actually a matter of hours or instantly, you can directly borrow against your collateral. So, and these features could be boon or bane. You need to be very careful with various risks that could lead to losses. So there's always a risk if you borrow. Just make sure you're doing your due diligence and your research, because especially if the market is volatile, you want to avoid that you're getting liquidated, potentially
Yeah.
getting liquidated.
Just adding one point, Volkan. Like here, for instance, I'm based in Brazil, and we have a lot of unbanked people. So this is also like a like good benefit for them, so they can borrow crypto without any stable job or without any bank account, which is nice to have for them. Just adding this point
Absolutely.
to that.
Really, really good remark. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it for firsthand. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay. And then a couple more slides to go for this module. Another popular DeFi application is centralized exchanges, often decentralized exchanges, often called DEXs. These platforms allow users to trade or swap digital assets without trusted intermediate. So you just directly go instantly into those DEXs, and then you can directly swap your assets. The traders are made directly between users' wallets with the help of smart contracts, of course. And then some exchanges know as automated market makers, which is a little bit more complex topic, but use liquidity pools to facilitate trading without directly needing a counterparty to match your trade. So you can think of automated market makers as a robot, always willing to quote you a price between two assets, essentially allowing anyone to become a market maker on an exchange and earn fees for providing liquidity to the DEX. And we have one more last slide to go for this module. Other popular DeFi service is yield optimization, also known as yield farming. This refers to DeFi dApps that automate and optimize the yield gain from reward pools, staking, and other interest-bearing products. So in conclusion, we can say if these DeFi products sound attractive to you, you might wonder where you can access those DeFi products. Ethereum has long been the traditional home for DeFi. However, there are now many blockchains with healthy DeFi ecosystem in general. But nonetheless, you still, of course, need to do your own research always. Almost any network with smart contracts has capabilities and can host DeFi applications. And finding credible DeFi protocols requires extensive research. Online forums, messengers, and websites can help you learn about new opportunities. However, you need to be extremely careful with any information you find. always be cautious and double check the safety of any DeFi protocol you need or hear about. Yeah, those were the first two modules. And of course, for this one, we have also one quiz. So let me just jump into it. Which of the following is or are DeFi use cases? Again, it's more than one answer for this one. Crypto mining, crypto mining, B, crypto borrowing and lending, C, centralized exchanges, D, yield farming, or E, decentralized exchanges.
Exactly. So we encourage everyone again to use the chat box and to type in the right answer.
Absolutely. Let's see. Okay, getting some responses. Some say B.
All right, which is crypto borrowing and lending. Is it the only answer? Do we have C and B?
I can give a hint. We have 3 for this one. 3 right. So
okay, C, B.
give it another 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Let's do the countdown. 9, 8. Okay.
I will take this moment again to thank our viewers. So we have 1,300 people watching us.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
VDE. I think that's it, right? VDE is correct, right?
We can reveal B is correct and D and E. So
Amazing,
crypto
great
borrowing,
job.
lending, yield farming, and decentralized exchanges, of course. So yeah, this is the first 2 models. So we are just halfway through. And yeah, I pass the ball back to you, Mahmoud, for the next topic.
Yeah, exactly. So in this topic, we're going to talk about smart contracts and dApps. So smart contracts actually power dApps on the blockchain for various purposes. So again, here you can see a short overview of the contents we're going to cover. So the definition of smart contracts, blockchain smart contracts, how does a smart contract actually work? Again, very high entry level. The characteristics, its use cases, limitations, dApps, and lastly, again, with a quiz. So again, I've mentioned, and Volkan as well, many times, smart contracts are a crucial element for DeFi products to actually function. So what are smart contracts actually? Let's start first with a brief history of the concept behind it. So lawyer and computer scientist Nick Szabo first described the idea of smart contracts back in the 90s. So a smart contract is actually a tool that formalizes and secures computer networks, by combining protocols with user interfaces, and potential uses were envisioned in fields involving contractual agreements, such as the credit systems and content right movements. But it was only after the launch of the Ethereum network in 2015 that smart contracts actually gained popularity. So in today's world, we define smart contracts as a self-executing computer program, so that run on a blockchain when predetermined conditions are met. So again, the conditions, they are predefined by a computer code, which is replicated and executed by all network nodes. So nodes are just computers who are connected with the network. And yeah, that's important to mention. In terms of like blockchain and smart contracts, the interaction between these two. So blockchain smart contracts allow for the creation of trustless protocols So this means that two parties, they can make commitments via blockchain without having to trust each other. And that's the basic understanding also of blockchain, right? Or the idea to make it decentralized and trustless. And yeah, this means again that they can, or the two parties can make commitments via blockchain without having trusting each other. They can be sure that the contract won't be executed if the conditions that are predefined aren't fulfilled. So each blockchain may present a different method of implementing smart contracts. In this module, we will only focus on smart contracts that run on the Ethereum network. Overall, while traditional contracts rely, on legal frameworks, human interpretation, and trusted intermediaries, smart contracts, they leverage blockchain technology to automate and self-execute the agreements in a decentralized and tamper-resistant manner. So smart contracts, again, provide transparency. They eliminate the need for intermediaries, which makes the process much more efficient. They offer programmability. You might have heard also of programmable money, making them particularly suitable for decentralized applications, financial transactions, and other use cases in the realm of decentralized finance. So how does a smart contract work? Because smart contracts execute a particular task when certain conditions are met, they follow if-then statements. I'm pretty sure you've heard about it. So smart contract contains lines, of computer codes that say, if condition X is met, then Y will be executed. And please note that despite the terminology, smart contracts, they are not legal contracts. So they are just like a piece of computer code that run on the blockchain. But as a matter of fact, smart contracts, they exist so that legal contracts don't have to be made. So there's, no need for a lawyer, a court, or government to enforce contract law. If everything that needs to happen in an agreement happens automatically when the predefined conditions are met. As the saying goes, in code we trust. So smart contracts can be used with a wide range of applications. You have, again, DeFi, decentralized finance. You have real estate. That's also maybe worth mentioning, that smart contracts can be used, to facilitate the buying and selling of real estates. So automating basically the transfer of ownership and ensuring that, all parties are paid in a transparent and secure manner. And more importantly, the identity verification. So smart contracts can be used, to create decentralized identities, or at least a decentralized verification system that enables individuals like you and me to prove their identity without relying on any centralized authority like governments or corporations. So now, what are smart contract characteristics? Also worth mentioning. So first, again, we focus only on Ethereum smart contracts. They are often distributed, so meaning that smart contracts, they are replicated and distributed in all nodes of the Ethereum network. They are deterministic, meaning that they only perform the actions that were designed to when the requirements are met, obviously, and the outcome will always be the same. So no matter who executes them, they are immutable, so meaning the execution is automated. So and the smart contracts, they can't be changed after deployment, and they can only be deleted. So you cannot edit them if a particular function was previously implemented. And lastly, they are transparent with their code, so the code is visible for everyone. In terms of use cases, so again, I've mentioned it before, it includes DeFi, voting systems, games, and as discussed previously, DeFi transactions, they are completed via smart contracts, and smart contracts, they can also be deployed with other blockchains or with other blockchain solutions in healthcare. You have supply chain, governance sector, for example. In terms of voting systems, for instance, let's just pick an example. Blockchain has the potential to transform secure online voting into a reality. In terms of games, some NFT games allow users to lock up NFTs or cryptocurrencies and smart contracts, which in turn generates rewards. So, for instance, in Decentraland, you have for healthcare, so some features actually allow cryptocurrency blockchains to act as a secure record of financial transactions, also applicable to storing medical data. For example, or creating a secure and unified peer-to-peer database. So again, there are like many use cases that we can include here. Lastly, for instance, entertainment, it's not here on the slide, but you have, for instance, Audios. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. So it's a decentralized music streaming platform where artists can basically upload, share, and monetize their music directly with with listeners. So it leverages basically blockchain technology to ensure transparency and fair distribution of your royalties. We talked about use cases, we talked about opportunities, and now about limitations or challenges. Obviously, smart contracts have limitations because people, again, write these computer codes, and they're obviously subject to human errors. So the immutability of smart contracts also make fixing any mistakes very, very difficult. So, for example, we have here a case where millions of dollars worth were stolen. It was called the DAO, a Decentralized Autonomous Organization, was hacked in 2016. So the hackers, they basically took advantage of flaws in the smart contract code. And since the smart contract was immutable, which is their characteristic, it was really, really challenging, for developers to fix the code. And it was nearly impossible to reverse the fraudulent transaction of the blockchain. And this eventually has led to a hard fork, giving birth to a second Ethereum chain. So now that we have like a better understanding of smart contracts on Ethereum, let's move on to dApps. So dApp stands for Decentralized Applications. It refers basically to apps with smart contract functionalities that run on blockchain networks. They can perform, functions that are similar to applications that you have, on your phones, a computer. But the one which is distinguishing them is basically the back-end system. This is like completely different. So you can think of smart contracts as a core component of dApps, while dApps are basically the product that provide a complete application experience to users. And there's, a great variety of dApps with different use cases, such as gaming, social media, entertainment, and of course, DeFi. And as of mid-2022, most dApps, they exist, on the Ethereum network, and there are like over 4,000 dApps. Yet the sector, is still in the very early stage of development, and despite dApps facing scalability and code modification difficulties that we currently are facing, and particularly on the Ethereum network, the industry is, expected to grow in applications and uses as decentralization becomes widely adopted. Now we have another quiz question for you guys.
Maybe, Mahmoud, maybe before we go to
Yes.
the quiz, actually, did you know that regarding to dApps, in 2018, there were around 1,000 dApps, and mid last year we were around 4,000, and I think right now it's around maybe 12,000 dApps roughly.
Wow.
So like within just a couple of years, like there were so many dApps already. I think in the future we can definitely expect also a lot of much more dApps to come as well. So
Exactly. I
yeah,
think
just
there's
wanted to
like a
throw out
positive.
that number.
No, no, I
Just
wasn't aware of these numbers.
yeah,
Thank you very much for bringing this to the table. So as you can see, again, the trend is uprising. The trend is
absolutely.
positive, and I'm pretty sure that we're gonna see more dApps applications in the very near future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Any other comments? Otherwise, we gonna move forward with
No,
the quiz
without
question.
further ado, let's go directly to the quiz, unless
All
you
right.
have anything from your side.
Not really. I just checked the comments, so maybe we have here a question,
Okay, let's
but no, couldn't find anything. Yeah, so let's move forward with the quiz question. Which of the following statements are correct? Again, we have here more than one. A smart contract refers to self-executing computer program that run on the World Wide Web when predetermined conditions are met. B, a smart contract refers to self-executing computer programs that run on the blockchain when predetermined conditions are met. C, dApps rely on smart contracts on a distributed network, while mobile apps rely on centralized systems. Or is it D, dApps rely on centralized systems, while mobile apps rely on smart contracts on a distributed network? Again, here you have 30 seconds to answer the question. I'm already seeing here B and D.
I need to read again through those. Those are some lengthy answers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. B and C. Wow, we have already 1,800 people viewing us, Volkan. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much for joining for this type of webinars.
Exactly. I think it's a very relevant topic for you guys. So BC, let's wait a couple more seconds. All right. So let's check the correct answer. Yeah, it's BC. Congratulations to, who was it actually? I'm just checking again. I can.
Let me see.
It was CDDR. Congrats.
Yeah,
We have
CDDR.
here Vikun as well. Flow Nice also voted for C. But yeah, let's move forward with the last module, right? I think it's also very interesting to know how a DAO actually works. Yeah, so happy to pass the ball back to Volkan.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mahmoud. So this is going to be the last module for today's webinar. We are going a little bit more explaining about what are DAOs, how do DAOs work, examples and the benefits of DAOs, and then of course what type of challenges and key factors for the success of DAOs, and then in the end, of course, how wrapping up the decentralization topic, and then of course having the quiz in the end of this module. So what is a DAO? DAO is an organization. So a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, and the structure or substructure commonly used for dApps, blockchain projects, social political funds, and crypto investment funds, with no centralized authority. Token holders of DAO collectively cast votes for the management of the DAO. All votes are posted on a blockchain for public viewing. Because of the decentralization and transparency, as well as their ability to work with self-executing smart contracts, DAOs have become a popular governing method in the blockchain and crypto space. So if you have a traditional like let's say a company, for example, usually there's a board or there's one person deciding it. But in DAOs, basically the token holders or the the people who are having the governance token, they have the voting power, and then they can basically make the decision for whatever decision the DAO decides to put out there. And then we can go to the next one. Token holders of a particular project can vote on issues that must be decided. The voting power is distributed generally based on the number of token holders or users that the users hold the token. The decision to be voted on are written as a proposal in the smart contract, and users must select between mutual exclusion options. So after token holders vote and based on the outcome of the vote, the smart contracts are automatically executed to implement the decision. Basically, first you got the question, then or a decision-making process, token holders vote, and then the smart contracts as a next step is basically executing it for the DAO. So
Here, just quickly, Volkan, I have a question. I think it's also very interesting for the audience. So, I mean, you were explaining what DAOs are, etc., and how a DAO actually works on a very high level. But what problem or industry do DAOs actually or aim to address or disrupt? Do you have like any idea?
to be honest, DAOs, I mean, yeah. So first of all, I think it's also again a good question. So first of all, DAOs can be applicable to anything, actually, any industry, any organization can be potentially a DAO. But in general, I would say the areas where, as of now, the main areas where DAOs are primarily disrupting is financial services, of course, in the blockchain industry. Governance and decision making, I think it's a very big factor, because the entire decision making with DAOs are very much automated. So I think this is one of the key elements where DAOs are disrupting, or the use cases in general. So anything anywhere where a governance or decision needs to be made within an organization, a DAO can be actually applicable for this one. And then supply chains and logistics is also one of the areas, I think, which is interesting as well. Yeah, I would say those are in general the areas, but again, it can be pretty much, Mahmoud, it can be pretty much applicable to any organization that needs to make a decision
Okay.
based on the token holders or the governance.
Thank you very much. There's like another question from the audience.
Of course.
Yeah, do DAOs has the same problem as 51% problem in blockchain? Not sure what he or she is referring to. I think what he's referring or she's referring to is like you have with blockchain, right? The 51% attack problem, right?
Yes.
So that you can basically modify the blockchain if you have 51% of the computing power, right?
Right.
Do we have the same thing for DAOs, or?
So it can happen, but usually there are ways of avoiding it. So it depends really how the smart contract itself is designed. Usually there are some mechanisms in place. So again, like research needs to be made, and you need to look into the smart contracts. But in general, there are mechanics in place. So, for example, certain a user can hold only X amount of tokens. That would avoid very easily this type of cases. Just as an example, a user can hold only 1% of the circulating supply. That would avoid it. But there can be cases as well, of course, if the smart contract does not avoid it, and if the circulating supply is owned or not even the circulating supply, but the total supply, if it's owned by one person or entity, of course, at any given time when there's a vote or governance decision to be made, the entity or the individual who holds 51% or the majority actually of the governance token has the majority of the decision power or the voting power. So it depends on the smart contract, how it is designed for this.
Absolutely agree. I think also to mitigate, the 51% problem that he was referring to. So I think it really depends also on the consensus mechanism. If you use, for instance, proof of authority, delegated proof of stake, which aims, to distribute the power and decision-making authority among multiple participants, you can prevent this problem so that one single entity has 51%. So just wanted to add this as well. But very, very good question. If we have another one, please please hit it here in the chat box. So we are more than happy to answer your questions.
Yep.
Other than this, can we move? Yeah, sorry.
Sure. No, I think we can, like if it's DAO related, we can definitely stop within this module. But if there are any questions related to the entire webinar, I think in the end we can potentially pick up some questions and then just go through it as well.
All right. Cool. No, totally agree. So let's move forward with the next one.
Awesome. Okay. So then some issues that token holder vote on include are whether to issue more tokens. So it's like if you are holding the token, what type of for what can you actually vote? Like very typical decisions are whether to issue more tokens or not, whether to the transactions fee should increase or not, because if the transaction fee increases, potentially the fees can be used to invest, for example, not just investing, but to allocate to different areas within the DAO. So it has also its pros and cons as well. And then also one example is a certain number of tokens, should it be burned or not? So should it go away from the circulating supply or not? So those are usually typical decisions that DAOs can vote on, but it can be completely individually based, depending on the DAO, depending on the structure. So there can be any type of decision token holders can vote on. Token burn means in general taking tokens out of the circulation permanently, and crypto investment DAOs token holder might vote on which investment strategy to use. So there are also a lot of DAOs out there. They are trying to invest in particular projects. So they are deciding project A, B, C to invest, and those are also usually typical decisions. A socio-political DAO token holder may vote on how to fund in the DAO, how the fund will be distributed or dispersed, and for what purposes. The logic behind why a DAO works is making assumption about incentives. Users who own tokens in a project have voting power, and the more tokens, of course, you own, the more voting power you have in general. So that's pretty much the concept of a DAO voting mechanism. And then we can go to the next one. So there are many benefits of a DAO. Without a centralized authority, a DAO distributes the decision-making power to a group of mostly anonymous users who have skin in the game. So basically the users, they decide. It makes the decision-making process aligned, as the decision makers are the ones who will be impacted directly by the decision. So basically you hold the token or governance token or the token of the DAO. And of course you want if you hold that token, you want the best decision for the DAO. So you are basically incentivized to make good decisions as a token holder. And yeah, third, the token holders are also feel a sense of ownership and empowerment when they have the direct saying and decision making. And because DAOs rely on smart contracts, the voting process is less at a risk in terms of like human errors, corruption, maybe as well. For example, proposal posts the results on chain, which automatically triggers the proposed change based on voting results. So it also means new proposal can't be censored and vote can't be technically rigged. So this is, I think, very, very big advantages of DAOs. You have transparency and basically it's very difficult to manipulate a DAO in general. Of course, depending on the smart contract, but in general, yeah, you have transparency and basically the voting power. So then, besides that, we can move on for the next one. Yeah, but the development of a DAO has faced challenges, of course. One of the earliest well-known DAO, you already mentioned it, is the DAO where there are leaks. So I'm not going to go deeper into that. But yeah, basically, if there's a mistake with the smart contract, yeah, then of course there's also issues with it that can't be really revised, or very difficult to be revised as well. So and then the regulatory environment surrounding DAOs is also quite uncertain, to be honest. So there are some countries that are trying to build frameworks, not just about DAOs, but in general about cryptocurrencies. But DAOs is also even a niche within the crypto industry. So to regulate DAOs, it's also still very, very uncertain. And yeah, it definitely needs some frameworks around that. How different jurisdictions will create a regulatory framework around, and new types of organizations remain to be seen how this will evolve in the future. And the desirable properties of DAOs, such as decentralization and immutability, also carry performance and security drawbacks as well. That's also something just to be aware of. So it's not we can exactly, it's not complicated to create a DAO. Still, it's relatively straightforward. Actually, there are different type of dApps allow you to create a DAO. Still, if you ever consider doing so, you should remember that DAO needs 4 main things to succeed. So first of all, you need to know why you're creating it, or you need to the community around the DAO needs to have a purpose and a vision. So what is the purpose of the DAO even, right? So this is, I think, needs to be very clearly communicated. And then the second one is the voting mechanism. How do users vote? The third one is the governance token. How is the governance token designed? Like, for example, what we just had, the 51% rule. Can certain people hold more tokens? And what type of voting rights? For example, there are also mechanics. The longer you hold a governance token, the more voting power you may potentially have. So just this type of systematics needs to be considered as well. And then, of course, a DAO needs to have a community, in particular a healthy community. So if it's just a couple of or just one person, a DAO doesn't make so much sense. But it needs to be really the main purpose of a DAO is together, for basically having a purpose, and then together trying to create something. And yeah, so this is pretty much the DAO part. We have one more slide to go.
Yeah, we have one more slide. Just quickly, are there like any other factors that we need to consider when creating a DAO? So you mentioned the 4, but yeah, can you like imagine of other things, like other areas we need to consider, we need to keep in mind?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of factors we already mentioned. I think within this model, I mean, the smart contract design and the security, of course, it's a big thing. The IT infrastructure, smart contracts, I think this needs to be definitely considered as well. The legal compliance, legal regulatory environment, what I mentioned previously, it's yeah, needs to be considered as well. So if you create a DAO, yeah, just need to be aware of where you can do what. So this is, I think, again, it's a little bit uncertain right now, so it needs to be taken into consideration. Scalability, I think it's a big part as well. With burning tokens, issuing tokens, can more users join into the ecosystem? How are they incentivized when new users join? So I think this part needs to be taken into consideration. If, for example, if a DAO grows, but for whatever reason, if the DAO the users may potentially decline, so that the systematic behind that needs to be also adjustable and scalable in general in both directions, to the upside and downside as well, just to minimize potential risks. And then interoperability, I think it's in general, not just for DAOs, but in crypto, I think it's also yeah, big topic. Is a DAO interoperable with other blockchains? Yeah, which blockchain you're using, and this type of topics, I think, needs to be taken into consideration as well.
All right, thank you very much. So
Sure.
let's make a quick wrap up,
Sure.
Volkan.
We
We are a
are
bit
okay. Let's
out of
just
time.
the last one. So now, I mean, we covered now, just to wrap up everything. We have covered in today's webinar DeFi, smart contracts, dApps, DAOs, decentralization, of course. And in the broadest definition, decentralization refers to dispersing functions and power away from central authorities, and then to distribute it to the network. This enables different parties to work together without having the trust each other. And blockchain technology is the critical technology enabling such decentralizations across numerous fields: DeFi, smart contracts, dApps, DAOs. So everything what we've covered today are the cases and tools that propel to the evolution towards decentralization. And of course, decentralization won't be a cure to all solutions. No single technology can ever be the solution to problem. But adoption of decentralization can serve to counter some of the weaknesses of the traditional paradigm of centralization. Things like central authorities such as banks, governments, corporations in general. And then I think this pretty much wraps it up, Mahmoud, unless you have anything to add on the...
I think you summarized everything very, very good. Thank you so much. And just to make it with a good ending, we still have one quiz question, right, to go. Before we answer also the questions of the audience, because I think there was like one or two we can cover then after the quiz. But yeah.
Sure. Okay. Then let's directly jump into the quiz. So that's the last quiz. Which of the following statements is or are correct? A, DAOs have no central authority. B, DAOs let token holders vote on issues. C, DAOs pool voting powers into central entity. D, DAOs are centralized and transparent. E, DAOs have a clear legal status in many countries. So let's give it. I see some B, C, and E.
Exactly.
What?
So again, please, we encourage you to use the chat box again for answering the question. Yeah, unfortunately, there's no gift. No. um,
The gift is yeah, knowledge.
yeah,
We
exactly.
hope
This
that
is the
you take
greatest gift
something from
you
that
can
webinar
receive.
and
Yeah,
learn
absolutely
something.
agree. So we have
Okay,
BC. Um,
let's give
anyone
it
else?
another 5 seconds and then
Yeah.
let's go for it. All right,
All right. So let's check.
let's reveal.
It's yeah,
Okay,
A, B, and D.
exactly. So DAOs have no central authority. DAOs let token holders vote on issues, and DAOs are decentralized and transparent. So
Exactly.
we
So yeah, a big thank you from our side, from our end, for joining us. We have now 2,600 people. Thank you so much. There was just actually one question, Volkan, also like maybe important to answer before we are ending this online webinar. Any disadvantages of a DAO or problems that people can face? I think you have mentioned them already, the scalability limitations. So if we look at, proof of work, proof of stake, the consensus mechanism, obviously they face scalability limitations. Or at least one more that I can think of ad hoc is like user experience and complexity, because interacting with DAOs can be more complex and might lead, to a less user-friendly adoption compared to traditional platforms. So users, they need to manage, as Volkan already mentioned, their private keys. They need to understand the underlying technology and navigate, so to say, through the decentralized interfaces. And this, learning curve, they may hinder, mainstream adoption. And yeah, anything else you might think of,
nothing
Volkan?
to add from my side. I think we've covered it: the legal, regulatory
Exactly.
frameworks, and then also the
The
smart
smart
contracts.
contract. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we've
All
covered it
right.
so far.
I think that's pretty much it. So next time we're gonna cover trading fundamentals, right? So we would love to have you guys joining this webinar as well. And yeah, thank you so much. Volkan,
Thank
do
you
you
for
have any
participating.
comments? Any that you want to share with us? Any comments about today or?
No, I want to say thank you for participating and see you next time.
See you next time. Bye bye.